Hi, I'm Dr. Mariana Grohowski. I'm a lecturer at the University of California, Irvine. There, I teach classes in Veteran Studies. I'm also the founder and editor-in-chief of the Journal of Veteran Studies and a co-founder and past president of the Veteran Studies Association. Essentially, I've devoted my professional career to helping establish veteran studies as a legitimate academic discipline. And in this video, I speak with Samuel Lewis, a student of psychology and veteran studies at Eastern Kentucky University. In our conversation, Samuel explains how he got introduced and interested in veteran studies, how he defines veteran studies, and why he thinks everyone can learn something important from the field. I think you'll find Samuel's enthusiasm inspiring. He discusses the podcast that he started and runs called Service to Service, in which he interviews someone working in the field of veteran studies in every episode, and how he enjoys viewing pop culture through a veteran studies lens. We end our talk by him explaining that anyone in the mental and health sciences can really benefit from a veteran studies course. And without further ado, I hope you enjoy my interview from July 2023 with Samuel Lewis. Let's begin by having you introduce yourself.
My name is Samuel Lewis. I live in Williamsburg, Kentucky. I'm one of those people that has never left their whole hometown, so I'm still here. Um, and I am currently a psychology major for my undergraduate. And veteran studies kind of crossed over with that. I'm sure we'll get into that later. But I'm currently, at the time of recording, working on that. And then once I get that done, I will move on to my master's in clinical mental health counseling, I think is the exact term they use for it. But I'm here at EKU doing that. So
Awesome. So you said veteran studies has crossed in with psychology, which is really interesting. Please tell us more, maybe tell us about like how you got interested in veteran studies. I guess we just want to start with that, maybe how you were introduced to it and therefore got interested in it.
The way that I got introduced to it is a lot of psych students in EKU take at least introduction to veteran studies because it makes total sense. At some point, there's a possibility that someone that you are helping is going to be a veteran, and you don't want to necessarily be in that situation unprepared. So Intro to Veteran Studies does a very good job at preparing you on a base level for that sort of stuff, and then you can get deeper as you go, right? But I took that class, and oh god, I don't think it was even more than like several weeks into it, I was already hooked. It was veteran studies grabbed me in a way that I was not expecting it to. And it just grabbed on. And then especially with there was an open project that we had where we could do a report or an art project or something like that. It's just kind of open as to how you can be creative, and people that are watching this see that there's a professional microphone in front of my face. So I am a podcaster. So with that, I decided, you know what, I'm going to do an interview and find someone. So I actually interviewed the program's one of our instructors, Peter Barris, about his experiences in Vietnam, going through the moral trauma rather than the other traumas that we talk about and stuff like that, because that's one of our new kind of emerging things that we're talking about. So I was curious about that specific thing. And little did I know when I turned that project in, they would go, "Do you want to make more of these?" So I ended up accidentally doing a pilot for a podcast that I now do for EKU called Service to Service. Plus, I've gotten so involved with it, I'm now currently, at time of recording, the president of the VSA. And the things that I am going to get on my degree when I do graduate will be a veteran studies minor and a veteran studies certificate.
And I love the origin story of like getting hooked, getting this invitation to develop a podcast, which is, I mean, gosh, tell us how many episodes you have. You've been quite prolific in putting them out consistently.
We've done 23 of them so far. I'm getting ready to release a 24th in August. But yeah, it's been fantastic to talk to all these people who are either veterans or people that work with veterans and get these different topics across. Like the most recent one that I interviewed that is already out is with a woman named Jennifer Briney that does a podcast called The Congressional Dish. And I talked to her about how you would watch Congress for veterans issues. So
that's so cool. I love it. I love seeing all the applicability of veteran studies in all these spaces as you're saying and seeing. That's awesome. So, you know, we've talked a little bit about it, but how would you define veteran studies? You're obviously a scholar and advocate of veteran studies, but for many students and people who don't know what it is, do you have like a rough definition or go-to when you tell people?
I don't have a go-to. I guess it depends on who I'm talking to, and I kind of gauge the room, so to speak. I'm very much that sort of person. But veteran studies, for anyone that's in the collegiate settings, think of it like the other cultural studies that you may have at a college level. So you have women's studies, African American studies, Native American studies, like all of the studies, so to speak. We very much share DNA with them, but we look at veterans as our culture of focus, as it were. Veterans are not monoliths, and a lot of times people sort of take them as monoliths of what they are. And instead, veteran studies kind of teaches you that no, they, like everyone else, they are human beings with various aspects to them that affect them in different ways. We've taken a phrase from one of the other studies, intersectionality, where all of those different aspects of a veteran come together to make the whole. And it's not just, oh, I've been in the military and that's the only thing that defines me. And veteran studies really helps you understand that and, you know, learn more about it.
Like, again, I'm curious to know if this is such an interest and something you're passionate about, you know, how has it translated or been applicable elsewhere out, you know, in your life, if anywhere else? If not, you covered it, but
it has leaked into other things. Once your brain gets wired for veteran studies, I don't think you can unwire it. That's the only, I say tongue in cheek, warning I will give you, is that this stuff will run through you afterwards. Like I think one of the more hilarious ones, I guess I'll share, is I do a Doctor Who podcast on my own podcast network. And I have started to realize that show throughout its run either did veterans and military extremely well, depending on who was writing it, or did it absolutely poorly, depending on who was writing it. And anytime a military figure shows up now in an episode, everyone just expects it. They know Samuel is going to spend at least 5 minutes talking about whatever military figure happened to be in the episode. So it's definitely shown up for there. And like other bits of pop culture, because I am very much a pop culture analyzey sort of person outside of the college work that I do. Like looking at things like Captain America being, as much as we look at him as like the great hero and everything, is he a bit too much of a Boy Scout? Or looking on the other side of the equation, the people that hold up the Punisher like we do and go, I'm not entirely sure that is the best look at a veteran that we could possibly look at. That's probably about the worst thing you could possibly hold up on a pedestal. But it's just interesting to look at even those, I'm going to say insignificant, sort of, although pop culture does do a lot more to our psyches than we think it does in terms of thinking things through and having ideas. But I'm just saying it in terms of these aren't real people, right? These are characters. But it does a lot for us in terms of that. And it's just interesting to look at those and things like that. So that's where it has mainly pushed into me. And just the things that this has just opened up, the people I have met. It's it's just utterly inspiring. I always joke on my show that I've got another good interview for them because I always do. And at some point, once I said it enough, I said, yes, I say it every episode. And I think I say that every episode too. But it's true that I get to talk to all these amazing people and get more of the story of veteran studies out there. And it's just a rich culture that not everyone understands, and pop culture is mostly to blame for that in some cases as well, along with other things. So it's interesting to take a look at that stuff and kind of break it apart because I can't stop myself at this point.
Do you come from a military background or have a military family,
That's
or
the fun part. I have no military connection whatsoever. I am what I jokingly call a concerned civilian. However, I literally came into this, and that may be part of what bewitched me about veteran studies is that when you come into even the intro class and you start being told the various things that nobody bothers to tell you, but there are things you were told as a civilian, and then there are things that actually happen. And I think people can decode that for themselves without me getting into any weeds that might be a problem. Yeah, that's essentially why it hit me. I had no background to it whatsoever. And as a result, I had no insight or look into or window into anything military whatsoever. And then whenever that window was opened for me, I just stared out of it. I just stared into the abyss for the rest of eternity, I guess.
Awesome. Excellent. So I'm hearing sort of the underlying thing that you're saying is, as a civilian with no military background, this is interesting to you, and you're seeing it in many places, the topic of, or the what could be veteran studies. You're seeing areas of study in so many different realms of your life. So I'm just curious about who you think should take a veteran studies course or care about veteran studies or veterans, not even the study of them. I think there is this thought that only if you have military background or you're a veteran should you care about your own people necessarily. So what do you think about that? And is this particularly who should take or be interested in veteran studies or the issues that you see in the classes?
I genuinely think everyone should take at least an intro class to veteran studies, and then you can figure out if you want to go deeper into it. But yeah, at least an intro class, because that alone opens your eyes to so much. And veterans are all around us. It's not it's not like, I mean, like some veterans wear hats and stuff like that, so they have the badge, so to speak, but you would be surprised how many veterans are around you and you don't even realize they're there because they are human beings like everyone else, right? I think it's important to understand them as a culture like it is important to understanding any other culture that exists out there. And sometimes they get neglected in that particular situation. So I would definitely recommend that anyone, professionally, if you want to go into that level of who should take it, anybody that's dealing with psychology, mental health, things like that. I would even go physical health, actually, so that if someone came into your office and you were a doctor, then you would be able to, understand anything they might be telling you. Because weirdly enough, different effects happen when you go to war. So both physical and mental, not always, mind you, but sometimes. So that's an important distinction. Because otherwise we get into a stereotype that goes down an entirely different spiral. But just professionally, any type of physical or mental health person, I think really would need to go into veterans, because these are your clients, these are your patients, these are your people that you are helping, and you want to be as properly equipped as possible. So do them a favor and do the work, right?
Well said. Yeah. And I would even, I don't disagree with anything you said. I'll just also add, I think it really will also give you a beautiful awareness for family members, right?
Yeah.
Right. Veterans' lives affect their children and their wives and their husbands and their,
Mhm.
aunts and uncles. And so it's just,
Agreed. There was a thing in one of my classes once that I will have stuck in my head, is because everyone talks about in like the mental health field, because this is my lens, right? As we're talking about lenses, everyone talks in the mental health field about, oh, the support of the client and all of that stuff. A lot of people neglect the people that are supporting the client, if that makes sense. That's why therapists and stuff are recommended. Have your own therapist for that exact reason. But if you translate that to family members and stuff like that, that means that if there is a veteran suffering through various things like transition, or let's go with some of the ones like PTSD or physical ailments or anything like that, that is a stress that is not just for that person. That is a stress that does branch out to family members and friends and anybody that is their support system. A support system needs support just like everyone else. So that is an important point to make. So I'll totally agree with you on that one.
well, thank you. Awesome. Well, you've answered all of my questions. Is there anything else you want to add here? Anything I didn't ask you that I should have asked you, or um,
No, I'll
otherwise,
just
yeah.
Yeah, I'll just recommend veteran studies. It is an amazing field. It's even got national levels at this point. We are working on them piece by piece and stuff like that, really trying to kick that into high gear. And I've loved the efforts that we've made so far with it. So it's definitely a field where you won't be alone either. You can go as deep as you want to, and there's usually someone that'll go, yeah, come here, I will help you go that deep. So it's definitely one that you can just really sink your teeth into, and it's an amazing experience.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for having me.